Hi, good morning. I'm here with Dr. Prabhakaran, who is an international expert in chronic disease management. And we are going to have a conversation this morning about our international programs within the AHA and various international initiatives, specifically relating to clinical trials and how we could have more exposure for clinical trials in the international arena, and how we could essentially get patients from Southeast Asia and other parts of the world rather than from North America or from Canada. So Dr. Prabhakaran, can you, in your area of expertise, I know I heard you talking yesterday about the lack of Southeast Asian patients in large clinical trials when it comes to managing either hypertension or heart disease or diabetes, and how could we change that focus more in terms of the subsequent next few years where we could include these patients in clinical trials?
I think stepping back, what we have noticed is a large majority of the trials emanate from the West, because the large pharmaceutical industries are here and the academia initiates these trials, and more international trials are conducted essentially involving many of these countries. But the problem is the numbers have not been adequate. I mean, maybe in the cardiovascular space a little bit is there, but the numbers are not really adequate to cater to the sample size, the big sample size issues that we have with these countries. So I think we should proactively try and include patients from Southeast Asia, South Asia, as well as Africa and other countries, so that we have an adequate representation of these countries. Now, one might ask, why is this needed? Because after all, biologically every human being is the same, and we show a trial that works in the United States should work in India, should work in Africa, should work in China. But really the problem is there are ethnic differences. There are ethnic differences in the way diabetes occurs or hypertension management occurs. So the biggest example is the Creole trial. The Creole trial, which was conducted in Africa last year, showed that the black populations have differential response to amlodipine combination with indapamide versus ACE inhibitor combination with indapamide, and that is not captured in the large trials that we conduct across the world, and therefore we need some special attention in terms of including these populations.
Yes, you couldn't have said it even better than what I remotely thought of. So the idea is, how can we include these patients in large-scale trials and look at disease patterns in time? And one of the thoughts in my mind is, as our quality and certification program within the AHA in the 13 countries grow, which is predominantly in India, in China, in Southeast Asia, North Africa, and in the greater Middle East, maybe the size of our quality initiatives and our certification programs would grow from, say, right now we are certified in 10 to 15 hospitals. This could become 100 hospitals. Once we size this thing, then we could look at our own data, include these patients, and really make a big difference in terms of studying ethnically different patient populations, in terms of what the effects are, like you said, in managing hypertension or in managing diabetes.
So I think that's a good idea in terms of building capacity or bringing up to speed the hospitals that are required to participate in the clinical trials. And I'm sure that you must be looking at many infrastructural issues apart from patient recruitment itself. The issue of ethics, for example, are the ethics committees empowered? How are they communicating to the patients? And how do they cater to any adverse effects that might happen? Are they complying with the local regulatory issues? So there are lots of issues that need to be addressed. But I think the second area which requires attention is capacity building, local capacity building of leaders who could become coordinators of the study or actually initiate programs by themselves, in terms of are we thinking that the leadership should shift from the West, or it should be shared with countries in China, countries like China and India, where there are international PIs who could lead studies. I think we should move to that kind of a paradigm rather than all the trials emanating from the West, and these are being just service providers in terms of providing patients to the trials.
I don't see any reason why we shouldn't really run a trial from India or China or the greater Middle East, have PIs from those areas. And I'm sure industry would also be interested because the wide swath of patients that are there in India and China, and if you have specific trials catered to populations that are there, I'm sure they would be interested. More importantly, I think somewhere within the next year in 2025, the AHA is embarking on an international membership program. So how do we get international physicians, nurses as members of the AHA, ultimately leading on to FAHA? So that is something that I and the international team is really focused in bringing it. Meaning a lot of them in terms of cost and in terms of various things. So structuring a clear mechanism for the international subset, which is different than the North American process, is something that would really, like you said, gender more participation from physicians in different parts of the world. And it doesn't need to be the American way, it could be an Indian way or the Chinese way or the Jordanian way, so that all these societies can get involved further in terms of bringing all the science that we learn about to the bedside and to larger communities that are there. So,
right, actually you make a very good point. The global health scenario is actually evolving, or kind of evolved in some places. I would like to quote Professor Peter Pure, who was the former director of London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He discovered the Ebola virus, and he was the UN head for control of HIV/AIDS for a very long time. He said that using the software language of 1.0 to 4.0, we can define global health. Global health 1.0 was when England started the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and the Liverpool School of Public Health. The idea was that the British diaspora was there in many of these colonies, and they were afflicted by these so-called tropical diseases, and something had to be done to them, and all the research and other activities took place in these institutions to cater to these people. But then they said that if we have to prevent people getting these diseases, we also need to cater to the local population, because the diseases were coming from there, and so we'll extend it to them, and that was 2.0. Then in the mid 20th century and till very late as 2000 or even now in some parts of the world, is what we call as 3.0, where people do global health for career progression. They go to these countries, work for some time without understanding the context and culture, and do studies, or international studies are done basically to increase the sample size. But I think we should evolve and move towards what we call as 4.0, where there is a true partnership, a partnership which brings in benefits to both the partners, the high income countries as well as the low middle income countries, where there is a bidirectional transfer of knowledge and bidirectional benefit. And I think AHA should strive to move towards this global health 4.0, and that's where the international trials will be successful.
You're absolutely right. There is no reason why it needed to start in England It can actually start in one of the low-income countries, and we could reverse engineer it. And I honestly believe that with our certification program throughout the 13 countries, we in North America are probably going to learn more about certification from certifying hospitals outside of North America, and how can we bring some of those certification ideas and accreditation ideas from these patients, and looking at, like you said, a global health parameter, whether it's, we all know that diabetes and obesity and smoking and hypertension is there in every part of the world. And when you get data from India and China and and Middle East and Africa, that data is going to be so robust that you could use that in North America and in the, in the developed world or in Europe for that matter. So
Right. Thank you.
that's great. So, in concluding, do you have any thoughts as to how you think the collaboration could be, between the AHA and other, since you're going to become the president of the World Heart Federation, how can this, I'm looking for some advice from you as to what can be the 4.0 or 5.0 in terms of further collaborative mechanisms that we could do. So
I think this is a great start. In fact, there is indeed a collaboration. AHA is a strategic partner of the World Heart Federation, and we have been working together for several years now. And the problems have been common. And I think we still are grappling with simple problems like hypertension. Why is there such low awareness? Why is there such poor control of people? What can be done? And it's a global problem. It's a problem even in the United States. But at the same time, you have enormous technologies which can address this problem. So how do we harness these solutions, make them low cost, at the same time make them equitable and scale it up across the world? I think that's the dialogue we should have. We should probably have a priority setting exercise in identifying 2 or 3 big blockbuster areas which can actually reduce. And we have seen this in many countries. In one generation, in UK, there's been a 50% reduction in cardiovascular diseases. Why can't we do it in other places?
yes.
What is the cost that is going to be involved? What are the best practices that we can follow? What are the challenges and the lessons that we can learn from them? I think we need a dialogue, and we need a priority setting exercise, and that will be one of the first things that I think I should do as a president. The other thing is, I think we should move away from this paradigm of these single diseases. We have people living with multiple long-term conditions. No individual, I mean, if you have diabetes, nearly 50% will have hypertension, they will have dyslipidemia, they will be obese, they will have osteoarthritis, and we on the other one hand say, please exercise. If you exercise, your blood sugar is going to come down. And if this person has osteoarthritis, how are you going to do? That is at the individual level. But at the system level, there are multiple problems. Like, for example, we ask patients to walk in Delhi or in Chennai. Where are the sidewalks for people to walk? So how do we create the system in which there can be good physical activity? How do we create a system, the food system, in which people are going to take healthy foods when the whole milieu caters to unhealthy foods? I think these are the bigger questions that we need to ask. The WHF, the World Heart Federation, has an annual summit where we debate policy issues, and that's one area where AHA and WHF can work together.
I think these are all excellent ideas. I will talk to the rest of the international team, and we can focus on some of these efforts. And actually, you brought up the whole CKMH concept, which is cardio kidney metabolic disease, which is the whole. Rather than looking at one hypertension, you're looking at the whole paradigm of CKMH, which indirectly leads to heart disease and stroke. Right? Patients with CKMH always are not going to die from CKMH. They're going to die from cardiovascular risk equivalents that are going to happen. So this is a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for taking time. It's great seeing you again at this meeting. I wish you all the best for the World Heart Federation, and hopefully we will meet in Chennai next time. So
thank you. Thank you very much.